unless you want me to talk about like, we just Ted grew up in Southern New Jersey, right outside of Philly. Was at Rutgers 2007 and 2011. Lived in the quads my freshman year. I was on Bush in the suites my sophomore year, and then junior senior year I lived in a house on Gildan. But definitely didn't go to enough classes and spent way too much time, going to the games, whether it be basketball or football or some sort of combination of both. But met you through my brother. So, we had a bunch of really good times up there. And, we just want to start a podcast for fun. Even if it doesn't go anywhere, just, we can look back on it, like a couple of years from now and just be like, hey, we have all of our thoughts, like recorded somewhere where we can like be like, oh, remember like when we talked about XYZ like 3 years ago, we could go back and revisit it. So,
No, yeah, I agree. So my name's Justin. I went to Rutgers from 2010 to 2018 consecutively from doing undergrad and grad. I was actually with the football team as a summer custodian. It was my first summertime job from 2006 to 2008. Then I was with the football team from 2011 to 2014. So excited to be talking about something I'm passionate about. Been going to games since a kid. Big Rutgers family. Uh, you know, I like where the program's been. I'm hoping to see it go even further in the right direction. And I feel like
I
from
know.
a fan, there's so much to talk about. There's a lot of
I guess we could talk too about like what made you want to go to Rutgers. I guess for me, growing up, I didn't go to like a super big high school, but I wanted to go somewhere that was like huge environment, where I wasn't going to run into the same people all the time. And funny story enough is I was actually visiting. I was in College Park with my dad, visiting Maryland that Jeremy Ito Louisville game, and we watched it in the hotel room. And as soon as I went back home, I applied to Rutgers. I had a cousin that played lacrosse for the team, and I ended up going up for a game, and I was just like totally sold. I'm like, this is sick. But that too, and my family's got like a ton of history there. Um, I think one of my great uncles was like either the head athletic trainer or one of the assistant athletic trainers. So got a lot of New Jersey ties. And dude, as soon as I just remember watching that Louisville game in College Park, which is ironic because back then they weren't in the they weren't in the Big Ten yet. They were still in the ACC. Maryland was, that is. And I just remember watching that game and I was like, dude, that looks so sick. Like everybody running onto the field, like that kind of thing. I was totally sold, hook, line, sinker. Went home, applied to Rutgers, and just just went from there. But
I think for me, it was I wanted to play college football. So I almost, in a way, didn't want to look at Rutgers because both my parents worked at Rutgers. So I knew I was going to be applying there anyway. My parents still work there. I've always been around the campus going up summertime, like seeing everything, like even like Bush Stadium evolve when it was like the U horseshoe to even like that '08 era when they were building that South Gate where the new student section is. So like the
yeah,
ultimate thing for me was when I got in, some of the schools, like more D3 schools, I wasn't going to go to, wasn't going to pay the price, had just way more better, I think, like better options. Both my parents were so big on me going to Rutgers that was the major decision. But I agree too that when we were ranked against number three after we went against Louisville, I feel like that's a big change in like people becoming fans. But even before that, I mean, I was going. I think Brian Leonard was the first thing that really sparked my interest as like a Rutgers fan. Like and Mike T,
yeah.
Brian
No,
Leonard,
man.
Clark
Yeah,
Harris,
that's just
even like Trey
it's
Trey Moses. And Sean Tucker before he was the AD. People forget he was one of
mhm,
our big recruits at wide receiver.
yeah. But no, I mean that's the funniest thing. It's like that short time frame when Shiana was there the first time, it like totally like flipped the outlook on on Rutgers for the most part. Because like growing up in South Jersey, everybody was all about Penn State. Like one of my best friends that I went to high school with, um, all about Penn State, dude. Everybody in Southern New Jersey was all Penn State. Like no one cared about Rutgers, like at all.
I remember when I was with the
But
program and we were talking about, they had a list of everyone we thought were like our biggest competitors. And this was just like student workers at the time. So our
mm,
direct recruiting brought us in. And I put Syracuse because I just remember like Shiano poaching, taking Brian Leonard and Ray Rice from like Syracuse, like really trying to bring them in and recruit them heavy on Rutgers. And it was Penn State. Like Penn State was really our biggest like target recruiting, and they would come in and just take Jersey guys all the time. And even today,
yeah,
because it's such a winning program, and they're probably proximity the closest thing to New Jersey around the board that everyone's really like. There's a lot of Penn State like strong ties.
I mean, even in recent memory, like all the super legit, a lot of super legit, New Jersey football talent that just never stayed home. Like that's why I used to love when they first came out. I'm not sure if they still try to push it, but the whole fence the garden deal, because you look at the dudes that left, like Malcolm Jenkins, arguably could end up in the Hall of Fame. Rashawn Gary plays for the Packers. Jabril Peppers,
Yeah,
was a
Michigan.
standout at Michigan. Will Hill went down there and played on some of those super elite Florida teams, and he was from I think Newark. That's just to name a few in like recent memory. But
Yeah, even Purdue. You'll say Iowa, Purdue, and West Virginia will take a lot of Jersey guys. I think sometimes GPA wise, Rutgers, because Rutgers is such a big research institution, a lot of our elite guys that if they can't hit a certain GPA or they can't hit that minimum, you see guys going to West Virginia, you see guys going to like Temple all the time, and even I guess I mean those would probably be the big two ones I've seen. In Iowa, I've seen as well.
um, but yeah, man, we can just dive into the game, I suppose. I guess before we start trying to talk anything like specific about it, I'll just give my general overview as I was watching the game from my office at work. Um, I mean, offense first half like played pretty well. I'm not gonna say really well, but played pretty well for it being the first game. You know, aside from DT's drop, which is what it is. Um, I think that I'm super excited about the receiving core, and they pretty much did what I anticipated them doing, which was spread the ball, you know, relatively evenly throughout. When you have each one of those guys, I feel like is super legit in their own right, and they have their own little like niche skill. Um, Obviously, Strong and Duff, being a lot more similar just because they're huge human beings. But run game looked good. I would have probably liked to see Jashawn Benjamin get a couple more touches, but I mean, couldn't be really mad about that. Um, but the defense, dude, defense is just when you thought that we were trying to put the shadow of last season behind us in terms of the defense, it just uh, it was kind of hard to watch at times, if not majority of the times.
And I agree. I think, Ethan having those three receivers, Duff, Strong, Sheffield, it opens a lot of options for him, even with Fletcher. So I'm glad to see him doing well, especially because I think there was so much attention to him not being like middle of the pack Big Ten quarterback. They had him ranked in the back end, where I really think he can compete at that elite level. I think he's going to show that. Also, nice that I think Shiano and everyone else talked about the depth at QB a little bit going into the season. And I noticed all of our running backs all kind of have a little bit of that Kyle Monangai style. So it's kind of
Yeah,
nice.
they all got the short dreads too.
So I don't know if we're going to see that as a trend moving forward with maybe some of Shiano's and Rutgers offenses and him being big on that philosophy with yards after contact. So that's something Kyle was strong at. I don't know if we'll see it. I mean, I thought our all line looked pretty well. I mean, we didn't see Ethan panicking really too much. So as a Rutgers fan, I mean, I feel like in recent years, offensively in the passing game, we've struggled, and we know we're running it first down, second down. So I think seeing the air game, at least in the first half, I wish we would have continued it more consecutively in the second half. But that was like a big thing to build off of. I think
Yeah,
Rutgers fans had I think going into the season, like the hype around offense or, a lot of like promise. And then defensively, yeah, it's not being able to pressure the quarterbacks. Are we going to struggle with, with quarterbacks this season? I was happy to see Josh Sanders playing big. Moses Walker recorded those 13 tackles. But, interesting to see where we move along with the season, Hopefully we can keep applying pressure, but I know it's not much depth returning at a linebacker, especially with Torrey transferring out.
yeah. It was really weird seeing him last night in the Canes uniform.
Yeah. I mean, especially being, prime time on main TV. So,
Yeah, yeah, man. Well, I also like we talked about before we got started. Like I wasn't at the game. Obviously I live in Nashville now, so heading to games is not going to be as easy as it was living on on Bush campus. But I mean, the student section turned up, which I'm happy about. But the rest of the stadium, at least from my perspective, looked pretty sparse.
yeah, going into the stadium, I met some people there and I took a coworker with me. So we came from Raritan Center and we left around 5, 10 after 5. And it really should have been like a 20-minute commute to the stadium. So we got into the stadium probably like 7 minutes into the first, 6 minutes into the first. And I mean, the
Mhm.
traffic, I mean, there was bottlenecks even getting into the stadium. So I thought it would have
Yeah.
been a lot more packed. I mean, the fan experience, they're still doing fireworks now at the south gate of the stadium. So there's always fireworks before the games, afterwards. You'll see a lot more of that, I think, in night games, like Iowa game 4, Oregon this season. So I know they've been trying to enhance the customer or not customer the fan experience. So I know they have all different themes this year, and they've been big with the boardwalk there. So I mean, if you're bringing your family there, there's rides, there's entertainment, there's food trucks, all going into the stadium. And now they do have the tailgating more. You can buy booze at the stadium. So I think it changes the whole college experience of going to games, and I think it increases bringing people to games. And maybe especially if they're not true hearted Rutgers fans, they're fan weather, it can bring people to, it's more approachable and more affordable for a lot of people to go to Rutgers games as opposed to, Eagles, Giants, Jets.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, I know we text back and forth a lot after the game, but like, huge proponent of going back to Nike. As you're wearing the Adidas shirt, though, I will say that.
Yeah, so the reason I wore this shirt too is I think in recent years, everyone just knew Ray Rice forever. So
Hmm.
to see, Pacheco really turning things around. I think for Knights in the NFL, now Monungai, and even kind of building up that DB University. I know everyone always thinks LSU, but the more you think about
Yeah,
it, we're putting out more and more defensive backs. But there was a big sale this year, the yard sale for all the Adidas gear we got out, and I like the Nike look. New stuff coming out. I like what the classic old looks. Love all the old gray sweats. And now I'm excited for some of our other sports to be wearing it as well. I think it will help big time with basketball recruiting and football too. So I know for a lot of recruits, if they don't want to see themselves wearing like Adidas or certain companies, Russell, it's a big turnoff for recruiting. Only certain
I
schools
was, I always,
Under Armour and
yeah, I always remember my favorite. My favorite helmet was the when we would have the blackout and they had like the chopped up like chrome with the state icon on it. I think that was probably like one of my favorite uniforms that they've ever put out that I can remember. That is.
I'm interested to see what Shiano goes with the Nike era because he was always big on the classic R, the white, the red. Then we would do the blackout games, and I love the American R. I feel like all those
Hmm.
hits too. So everyone they give out those red block R magnets. But if you were living in New Brunswick or you commuting, like and you had the American block bars, people steal those all the time. I mean, I got 2 here in the house, but I'd be afraid to put them on my car because I feel like someone would just jack one. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
I got them all over the place.
campus,
I
but
got them at I got them at my office at work. I have them all over the house here. But yeah, man, I guess we can break it down. I guess we'll just break down by position groups. I guess we'll start off with offense. Um, unless you want to start out with defense and end on a positive note.
Yeah, I mean we could do it either way. If we start out with
All right, we'll start
defense,
off. We'll start off with the defense, man. I guess you know, coming in from last year, something that I did notice that I was concerned about was like how much Jabome and Walker would be able to like progress in the off season. And to be honest with you, I mean, without having to like rewatch the entire game, um, they both played pretty well. I mean, obviously the stats for Walker, he was just around the ball all the time. But I think the biggest thing for me was the fact that um, you didn't see a lot of the, like bad angles, bad reads on plays from the linebacking group. That is, they always seem to either be like kind of in the right place. I noticed that they did a lot of blitzing with the backers. I know Jabome almost got home, I think like once or twice. Um, and they played, I think that they played well. I mean, they were definitely one of the weaker position groups last season, and I think that they played. I mean, all things considered, they played well. I think honestly, I'd be willing to state that they probably played the best out of any of the defensive position groups on the field from Thursday night.
I think linebackers too. Like just doing a little bit of like research, looking at stats. I mean, there's a few guys that had maybe 10 tackles throughout last season, 13. So I mean, Jabomi coming back, Moses Walker having like a big night too. I think is something to build off for next week. Our two ends coming from Big Five schools, I saw pressure. I mean, I think we may have reported one sack. I didn't really even look too deep into it. I mean, being at the game, it didn't seem like we were pressuring enough their O line. I mean, Parker Navarro too is a mobile quarterback. He played fantastic.
Mhm.
So it's Ohio is a good team. They're a legit team. Mostly, I think our D backs. I think still were the strongest in a way. I mean, I love seeing Kyle Sanders play. I mean, I think Bo Maska has had some hype before the season. And honestly, they're all young. If you really look at the D backs, I don't think any of them are seniors. I know of our linebackers, I don't think are actually seniors. And I'm not even
No, I don't think so.
100% sure on our D line. We recruited a lot of our freshman linebackers, I believe, were highly recruited. So coming in, that's
Yeah,
the program.
I mean, I just think it's big for Walker because he came. I mean, he was a huge get, stealing him from I think Penn State when we actually got him to commit to us. And I know he kind of had an up and down season last year, but I mean, neither of them had seen a ton of in-game action. Um, but uh, you know, the defensive ends, I was kind of just ho hum about. I mean, I was concerned about like how they would come in and perform against Big Ten type teams, and the fact that we weren't getting the pressure against Ohio. Now, granted, they did bring back pretty much their entire offense. So I mean, I agree with the fact that you said that um, they're not a pushover team, but the fact that we weren't able to get like even any kind of pressure from the edge was kind of a red flag for me. Um, I didn't really see much of what was going on with the defensive tackle position, so I'm not going to speak, out of place on that. But I don't know, man. I have to disagree with you on the D backs, man. You know, especially the safety position. I expected a lot coming into this season, especially with the amount of effort that we put out to get Elad on the team, and he just I don't know, and maybe he's just got like rust, game rust, but he just seemed like he just wasn't in it. Like not maybe not mentally, but he was like I said, like the things that plagued us last year popped up over and over again last game, and it was bad angles, poor tackling, big plays.
Do you think moving forward, that's going to be even more critical that we're going to have a roller coaster season? Because I mean, even linebackers last year, losing Powell. I mean, Torrey was injured
Mhm.
the whole season, but he's always been kind of a big like rush edge up front. Always brings the intensity. He's always in the backfield, and then even Hamilton. So some of those guys that were like critical for us last season up front.
Yeah.
It's new people on the team. It's not a lot of leadership returning to the defense. So, and two, coming under, I feel like historically, Rob Smith, Coach Giano, Bob Frazier, defensive masterminds. Do you think we could see a lot of adjustments come week 2 and week 3 before we get to the conference schedule?
I mean, I think that we're gonna have to see something. And I'm not gonna hedge all my bets. It is the first game, so I'm not gonna be wildly critical of how people played. But um, of the position groups on defense that I coming into the season that I was going to be objectively the least concerned about was the safety position. Kaj, like you said, super young, super athletic, very fast. Makes plays. He didn't play particularly well. Like he kept getting lost. At least it seemed to me that he was getting lost on certain plays. I mean, we already talked about Eli, but like I thought that those two, with some other people mixed in, were going to be one of the stronger position groups, and it just didn't appear as if they were in sync um, moving forward. Um, the cornerback position, they did a lot of switching at the cornerback spot. We saw a lot of Al Salam. We saw a lot of Bill Mascow, who I could have sworn that one play he was like a quarter second away from taking that to the crib on a pick six.
Yeah, earlier
I
on.
saw him coming. I saw him coming from the top of the screen, and I was like, "Oh, dude, that's about to be a pick six. Like, there's no way." And the ball like just got there in time. Miller. I don't know. I didn't watch a whole lot of Penn State last year. Um, but like there's a couple times where he kind of seemed, out of sorts. Um, but like I said, it is what it is. It's the first game of the season. I know that Shiano and Coach Smith will go ahead and make some adjustments. It's just I was so focused on, seeing how the linebacker group had developed coming into this season that I was kind of shocked that, the safety position and even at times the cornerbacks were they didn't seem, I don't really know how to put it, but like they just, like I said, taking the bad angles, giving up the big plays. It's the same stuff that plagued us last year. So it was a little bit concerning, first game of the season. And, I'm not going to sit here and lose sleep over it. I'm sure they'll all get better. And, like I said, I don't even remember the last time Jay Eli has played in a live game because did he play all of last season or was it UNLV?
I didn't even pay attention. No, I'm not sure.
All right, because I know he had been going through a lot this offseason, obviously with his eligibility. So I mean, these are all young guys, so they got a lot going on, and it's not just football for them. So, they got outside stuff going on, so I can't be too critical. But um, I definitely want to see some, some more cohesion, at least on the back end of the field, the safeties moving forward, at least from the defensive position.
Yeah, and even replacing Longer Beam and Flip Dixon, anytime you get veteran guys there, especially if they're starting, 1 season, 2 seasons for us, even transfers that come in, they bring so much different, experiences, what they bring to the game, to our program. I always wonder, how much impact they have from the time they leave the program, whether they graduate, they transfer out, new coaches coming in, old coaches coming in, different training programs. And I mean, Rutgers, for the most part, it's all been mostly the same. Shiana's people he brings in, his network. So, I mean, with the whole transfer portal in today's world, so much shifts and so much changes, season to season. So, and even NIL,
Yeah,
that would
it's
impact.
tough to it's tough to maintain that continuity that we're so used to with the way that college football's kind of been shaping up the past couple of years. Um, but yeah, I mean, all in all, like you said, I mean, Navarro is a legit quarterback. I just don't understand, at least from the coaching staff's perspective, is it seems like every every time we play a mobile quarterback who's like a legitimate threat with his legs, like you kind of just have to buckle your seatbelt as a Rutgers fan.
Yeah. You know what? I think the one thing that really scares me sometimes as a Rutgers fan, where you get that apprehension when we're doing well. You know, you get sometimes you get fair weather fans, but you know what? It always helps recruiting. I feel like every time we're middle of the pack or it seems like we won't be performing, we're so quick to have, verbal decommits and, sometimes recruits with like a lot of promise. So I always wonder that, like going forward with the program, if we're always hoping to always be at least middle of the pack, or can we, build up, change the program and actually move into that upward trajectory where we're now in, maybe the top six every year, top eight, especially now with the new expansion of the Big Ten.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can roll over into offense. I mean, first half, not a whole lot that you can talk about in a critical way. You know, we ran the ball well. The offensive line seemed to get some good push, aside from the one sack that I think Dante Chin gave up. It seemed as if Ethan had a ton of time to sit back and take care of all the business that he needed to. Um, you know, um, the wide receiver core. I mean, we already talked about them. I mean, they're going to be our workhorse this year, straight up. I mean, KJ Duff. I'm super excited for KJ Duff this season, and I've been saying it all off season. I mean, obviously Ian Strong's going to do Ian Strong things. I'm not really concerned about that, but I mean, this is. I feel like KJ Duff has a chance to do something like super special this year, and I think that it's going to sound super funny, but it's like, we have our wide receiver core is built kind of like how you like to build your wide receiver core in like NCAA. You got like the two big bodies that can get you the contested catches, and then um, you got our speedster who can just operate pretty much at will, on the under routes, you know. Um, but that being said, you know, the running back stable strong. I really like what we saw from Antoine Raymond, excuse me. Um, CJ Campbell, solid game. He's like a good change of pace, comes in. He has some explosive plays. But and even the offensive line too. I mean, obviously we were playing against, not a classic Big Ten team, but we got some good push. The only thing I can say is that, I feel like we took our foot off the gas in the second half, and that's what got us into a tough situation.
Yeah, just a heads up, we did because I got the basic plan too. We got the 5 minute notification.
Oh yeah, I seen the
So
alert. We'll have to start a new one after
yeah.
it runs out.
Also, I mean, last season we kind of talked about Fletcher being an X factor. Do we see him
Mhm.
having a major impactful year, even in the receiving game, especially as we go into maybe stronger defenses or conference defenses?
I mean, I think so. I mean, him and Colin Weber, I have the stats pulled up. I think each of them only got one catch, one target, you know? Um, I think it's more so, Kirk is trying to figure out how to, spread the wealth, dude. When's the last time as a Rutgers fan you've been able to sit down and think about like how many people we have on a team that we could feed the ball to that are legitimate problems for people. I mean, Fletcher was killing it for us last season. Unfortunately, him, like pretty much the rest of the team, ended up unfortunately, getting an injury. But like, I can't remember the last time in recent memory where I could sit down and have a hard time thinking about who's going to be the standout on offense for us. It could be anybody. It could be anybody any week, any day of the week. We could have Ian Strong have a huge game. KJ Duff could have a huge game. You saw the instant offense potential that DT Sheffield brings to the table. you know, and that's not to factor in the fact that, Antoine Raymond, stud, CJ Campbell, stud. Probably all season I've been hearing about how he's a weapon out of the backfield, and we didn't even have any running back targets, you know?
I think the last time we've had a receiving threat like this was with Sanu, Harrison, Tim Wright, Karan Pratt, and before, kind of takes me back to the Tim Brown, Tyquan Underwood, Kenny Britt days. So where you actually get
Exactly.
most like those true 3 to 4 receiving threat receivers at any given time. The only thing, I guess, building off of, I think that could be a major player or factor for us this season is special teams. I mean, are we
Yeah.
going to see more block punts? Are we going to see, hopefully, larger returns, potentially, raw athleticism to, make critical game changing plays for us?
Yeah. But I think Deshaun Benjamin had a really solid return on one of the returns that we actually um, didn't fair catch. Um, I mean, going into the depth of the receiving core, like I'm really interested to see what Ben Black can do. Because I remember on the Ream Beam podcast, shout out to those guys. They always talked about how everybody on the team said this dude was the fastest guy on the team. So I'm really interested to see like maybe him get some reps, give DT a breather to kind of have him ease into seeing what he can do too. But like you said, I mean, we have so many options. Tight ends didn't get barely any love. Um, we got no running back targets out the backfield.
Well, I think we've seen this a lot too in the past with like Janaria Grant and Krushank, where you get those crucial, long third downs, fourth downs, and all it takes is them to do a drag across the middle, a slant, and you can see the speed kills. They could take a 5 yard catch and turn it into 15, 20 on any given play.
Yeah, yeah. We're over 40. Does that mean we need to stop?
No, uh, no, I think we're still going.